The city skyline glowed like a scattered string of diamonds against the velvet dusk as I stood at the window of my 32nd floor office. From here, the traffic below looked like slow-moving lava, a silent river of red brake lights. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, the silky sleeve of my cream blouse sliding down my wrist. Somewhere in the distance a siren wailed, then faded, swallowed by the hum of New York's restless night. My phone buzzed on the mahogany desk behind me. Once, twice, 3 times, an impatient rhythm. I didn't have to check to know it was from home. My family group chat rarely came alive unless there was drama, and drama usually meant my sister. I turned, the soft carpet muffling my steps, and glanced at the screen. Sure enough, a text from my mother flashed. "Big dinner tonight. Your sister has exciting news." 3 cheerful emojis followed, each one like a small jab to the ribs. Exciting news. I almost laughed, a dry sound that caught in my throat. It had been 3 years since that night. The night she'd stolen the credit for my invention and left me humiliated in front of every aunt, uncle, and cousin we'd ever known. Now, after everything I'd built in secret, she wanted another audience. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to be in the same room. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over the reply, when the next message appeared. "Olivia, we're all waiting. Don't be late." I exhaled slowly, the weight of unfinished business pressing like a stone against my chest. 3 years earlier, the Brooks family's colonial-style house in suburban Connecticut smelled like rosemary chicken and tension. It was the night of my mother's annual spring dinner, her chance to prove that Martha Stewart would have envied her table settings. Candles flickered in crystal holders. Silverware gleamed as if it had never met a dishwasher. I'd arrived with a heart thrumming like a trapped bird. For weeks I'd been perfecting the prototype of my portable, solar-powered water purifier. A practical invention that could help communities after storms or in remote areas. I'd finally filed my preliminary paperwork with the patent office that morning. Tonight, I wanted to share my triumph with the people who'd raised me. But my sister, Julia, was already glowing in the center of the dining room, like the star of a play I didn't know I was in. Her auburn hair caught every bit of candlelight. "Everyone," she announced, lifting her wine glass, "I have thrilling news. I've been working on something revolutionary, something that could change disaster relief forever." I froze. My mother's eyes widened. My father set down his fork. Julia's voice, confident, honey-sweet, rolled on. "A portable, solar-powered water purifier. I've filed for a patent today." A burst of polite applause filled the room. My throat closed. The words were mine, my design, my months of testing, the sleepless nights. I gripped the edge of my chair until my knuckles ached. "That's incredible," Aunt May breathed. "You're brilliant, Julia." I wanted to speak, to scream, but the clink of glasses drowned my thoughts. When I finally found my voice, it came out thin. "Julia, that's..." She cut me off with a dazzling smile. "Olivia helped me brainstorm, of course. She's always supportive." A casual dismissal, like my work was a mere afterthought. Heat crept up my neck. I glanced at my parents, searching for a flicker of recognition. My mother only beamed at Julia. My father raised his glass. The rest of the night blurred into a haze of laughter and wine while my own heartbeat roared in my ears. Later, as I stood alone on the porch beneath the cold Connecticut stars, Grandma Rose slipped outside. She pressed something into my hand, a small brass compass, worn smooth with age. "For when you need to find your true north," she whispered. "Don't let anyone else tell you where it is." Her eyes held a quiet certainty I desperately needed. I closed my fingers around the compass and, in that moment, knew I wouldn't stay silent forever. The night after Julia's announcement, I packed the essentials, laptop, notebooks, Grandma Rose's compass, into my old Navy duffel and drove away before sunrise. The Connecticut roads were empty, silvered by a mist that made the world feel both eerie and full of possibility. I told no one, not my parents, not even Grandma Rose. The humiliation from that dinner burned too sharply to share. New York City became my refuge and my test. I sublet a studio apartment in a building that smelled faintly of curry and old paint. The walls were thin enough to hear my neighbor's late-night saxophone practice, which became my nightly soundtrack. During the day, I worked at a cramped engineering co-op, taking freelance gigs, designing filtration systems for boutique water brands, anything to keep the rent paid. At night, I poured everything into my invention. I refined the purifier's solar panel efficiency, reworked the microfiltration cartridges, and coded a simple companion app. There were nights when self-doubt stretched across me like a lead blanket. My fingertips ached from soldering, my eyes burned from staring at CAD drawings. I'd catch a glimpse of my reflection in the streaked window, hair tied back with a fraying elastic, chipped navy nail polish, and wonder if Julia had already turned my idea into a headline. Then came Dr. Margaretchen. She found me hunched over a circuit board at a community makerspace one rainy Saturday. A senior researcher at a humanitarian tech nonprofit, she leaned over my shoulder and asked, "Who built this?" When I told her, she smiled, the kind that made you believe in your own talent. "This is clever work. Have you considered scaling it for field use?" Her confidence in me was the oxygen I hadn't realized I was starving for. Under her mentorship, I secured a modest grant. We built a small team. 2 idealistic engineers, a logistics whiz, and me, still Olivia Brooks, still the girl with the stolen idea, but now the woman quietly turning it into something unstoppable. Our first big breakthrough came the day we shipped prototypes to a hurricane-stricken town in Florida. I watched a child fill a bottle with rainwater and, moments later, drink it safely. The look of relief on his mother's face lit a spark inside me that no amount of Julia's applause could have matched. Soon after, we launched Blue Compass Solutions, the name inspired by Grandma Rose's gift. Grants grew into contracts. International aid groups began calling. My name appeared on patents and partnership papers, though I kept a low public profile. On social media, I shared only small, neutral updates, a cityscape at sunset, a photo of my morning coffee, never the story behind my success. To my family, I was simply keeping busy in New York, nothing more. But every night, when I set Grandma Rose's compass beside my bed, I felt its weight like a quiet promise. When the time came to face Julia and the truth, I would be ready. The private dining room at the Bellevue Hotel smelled faintly of polished wood and truffle oil, luxury pretending to be casual. Soft jazz spilled from hidden speakers while the city glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I arrived exactly on time, my heart a quiet metronome under my navy silk dress. My mother waved from a long table set with white linen and flickering candles. Julia, resplendent in a crimson wrap dress, sat at the head like a queen expecting tribute. "Olivia," she called, her voice sugar-dipped. "We were just talking about you." I kissed my mother's cheek, nodded at my father, then met Julia's gaze. Her eyes, still the same shade of mischief and calculation, scanned me head to toe. "You look successful," she said, a hint of surprise lacing her words. "I've been busy," I replied, sliding into the seat across from her. Dinner unfolded in predictable patterns. Dad's stories about golf, Mom's updates on the neighbor's new puppy. But beneath the polite chatter, tension hummed like an electric wire. Julia eventually raised her glass, tapping it lightly. "I have wonderful news," she announced. "I'm finalizing a major contract for my water purifier patent. A global NGO wants exclusive rights." There it was, another claim, another theft dressed as triumph. My pulse steadied. "How exciting," I said, letting each syllable drip with calm. "Have you filed everything?" "Of course," she replied with a breezy smile. "Though the final paperwork is still processing." I reached into my leather tote and placed a thick folder on the table. The room's chatter thinned to silence. "This," I said, sliding the folder toward her, "is the fully executed patent for the Blue Compass solar purifier, filed 3 years ago. My name is the sole inventor. The technology you've been shopping around?" I tapped the folder. "It's mine." Julia blinked, her confidence faltering for the first time. "That's impossible." "You what?" My voice sharpened. Stole my idea? Stood in front of our entire family and claimed it as your own. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father cleared his throat, eyes wide. I continued, my tone even but unflinching. I didn't come tonight to embarrass you. But since you plan to sell something that doesn't belong to you, I had to make things clear. I reached for my wine, letting the pause sink in like a stone dropped into deep water. Julia's face paled. You can't. I already did. I met her gaze. Blue Compass Solutions has contracts with 3 international aid agencies. My name is on every legal document. If you attempt to license anything based on my design, their attorneys will be the first to know. Silence blanketed the table. The only sound was the soft jazz and the distant clink of dishes from the main dining room. My mother finally whispered, "Olivia, we didn't realize." "I know," I said gently. "I never told you. I needed to build this on my own, without anyone's shadow hanging over me." Julia's eyes filled with something, shame, perhaps, or the first prick of understanding. I stood, smoothing my dress. "I'll settle the bill. Enjoy the evening." "But Julia," I paused, letting her meet my eyes. "This is your chance to make something of your own, not mine." As I turned toward the door, Grandma Rose's brass compass, tucked in my pocket, pressed lightly against my palm. Its quiet weight felt like a steady heartbeat, guiding me forward. Behind me, the room remained hushed, a family finally confronted with the truth. I didn't rush out of the Bellevue Hotel that night. Instead, I lingered in the lobby's quiet glow, the marble floor echoing softly beneath my heels. The adrenaline had begun to ebb, leaving a steadier resolve in its place. For the first time in years, the balance between Julia and me felt right. Minutes later, she found me near the tall arrangement of white lilies. Her crimson dress looked less like a statement and more like a warning flare. "Olivia," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I held up a hand. "Don't apologize yet. Words won't fix this." Her eyes darted toward the polished floor. I didn't think you'd actually do it. File the patent. Build the company. You always seemed so quiet," I supplied, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "Maybe. But quiet doesn't mean weak." Julia's shoulders slumped. "I messed up." "Yes," I said softly. "And there are conditions if you want any kind of relationship with me moving forward." Her head lifted, wary. "First," I said, "you'll issue a public statement to the NGO you approached, clarifying that you are not the inventor. No excuses, no half-truths. Just honesty." She nodded slowly. "Second, you'll pursue something that is yours. Not something you borrowed or bent until it looked original. What have you always loved, really loved?" Julia blinked, surprised by the question. "I always wanted to design community gardens. Spaces where people can grow food together." "Then start there," I said. "And if you do, I'll personally fund your first pilot project, on one condition." Her brows furrowed. "Which is?" "That you lead it. Fully. No shortcuts, no stealing credit. I'll be silent support, nothing more." Julia exhaled, a shaky breath that carried both relief and the weight of responsibility. "Finally," I added, "you'll speak to Mom and Dad. Tell them what happened. Not for me, for you. You can't build something healthy on a lie." Tears gathered in her eyes, catching the lobby's soft light. "I can do that," she whispered. I placed a hand lightly on her arm. "This isn't about revenge, Julia. It's about growth. For both of us." She nodded, and for the first time in years, her posture wasn't a performance, it was simply hers. When she walked back toward the dining room to face our parents, I felt the compass in my pocket warm against my palm, as if Grandma Rose's steady hand still guided me. A week later, a soft rain glazed the streets of New York in silver. I sat by the wide window of my apartment, a mug of chamomile tea warming my hands. Outside, the city pulsed in quiet rhythm, taxi lights blurring like fireflies, steam rising from manhole covers in soft ghosts of heat. Julia's message had arrived earlier that morning. A photo of a handwritten letter she'd given to our parents. I took credit for something that wasn't mine. Olivia is the true inventor. I'm sorry for the hurt I caused. Below it, a second photo, her preliminary sketches for a community garden project, lines of green and gold ink blossoming across the page. I hadn't realized until that moment how tightly I'd been holding my breath these past 3 years. My parents called later, voices thick with apology and pride. They wanted to visit my office, to see the company I'd built. I said yes, but not today. For now, the quiet satisfaction of their acknowledgement was enough. That evening, I unlocked the glass case on my bookshelf and lifted Grandma Rose's compass. Its brass face had dulled over time, but the needle swung with stubborn certainty. I turned it slowly in my palm, remembering her words, "For when you need to find your true north." My true north, I realized, was never about revenge or proving Julia wrong. It was about becoming the woman who could build something meaningful and stand in it without fear. I set the compass back on the shelf, its steady needle pointing unerringly forward. As the rain softened to a mist, I whispered into the quiet apartment, a voice strong and sure enough to carry anywhere. "I've found it, my own true north." And for the first time, the city outside seemed to hum the same quiet answer back.